Well, good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michael B. Ross, and I would like to welcome you to the HBK High Performance Podcast. I hope the sun is shining and the birds are chirping in your life, and I hope all your dreams are coming true. Before we get started today, as I always like to mention, if you hear one good thought, one good phrase, one good quote, or one good idea from this podcast, I would ask you to put that thought, phrase, idea, or quote into absolute immediate action. It is the application of our education that makes the biggest difference in our world. And I don't want you to be one of those people who looks back on their life with regret. The research shows that over 85% of human beings look back on their life with significant regret. And the number one regret of the dying is I did not live a life true to who I knew I should be. I instead lived my life based on the expectations of others. I want to give you a secret. And this is a secret that really only a few know. Other people don't have very much planned for you. You have got to make sure that you are clear about what you want. You are clear about the roadblocks that keep you from getting to what you want. And then you need to have the fortitude, the ideas, the strength, and the immediate action to overcome roadblocks to get what you want. Today, I am very, very excited to bring on a special guest. He is one of our partners in charge at HBK CPAs and Consultants. He is an excellent, both CPA, and I would say, if I may, Craig, I think he's an even better consultant. He is excellent at listening to clients and helping them solve problems. And he's also great at unifying teams and helping them achieve more than they thought possible. And I asked him to come on today in his very busy schedule and share some of his wisdom and knowledge about leadership with us, and also to tell us a little more about what he does at HBK specifically, because he heads up a very, very cool initiative called CAS, which he will tell you more about later in the podcast. Without further ado, my friend Craig Steinhoff, thank you so much for being with us, Craig.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. We've been it's taken a little while to get this on, but I'm excited as can be to be with you today.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. I know our audience is excited. So let's start with some questions. I'd love to hear, what is your definition of leadership, and why did you come up with that definition?
You probably know me a little bit too well. I am a leadership junkie. I read a lot of the business books on leadership. I try to put myself in positions to excel in leadership. And frankly, my biggest definition or best definition that I've come up with is somebody who possesses the qualities and the characteristics where people follow the individual, not because they have to, but because they want to. Yeah. That's always been kind of the definition of leadership to me in my world, where it's not about somebody's title. It's about, their attraction. You're attracted to what they're doing, their vision, and you want to follow them.
Yeah, that's great. Have you always thought of it like that? And as leadership in your studies of leadership, when did that start for you? Like, how young were you when you started to study?
Well, it was definitely early on in my career when I worked for a small firm in Columbus, Ohio, and there were a couple partners in that firm. And I always noticed that a lot of the people, the employees would gravitate to one of the partners and just want to work harder for him, would just want to do the best for him. And, my ears perked up because I was the same way. And I noticed he would do little things, like, staying late and helping out, where he would roll up his sleeves and he would be binding financial statements and tax returns alongside with us to meet the deadline. And then you had the other partners that may have left, while we were cranking, things out until midnight. He was given attaboys and attagirls and just thanking us for what we were doing. And it was just one of those things that I just noticed. I would be following him. I'd run through a wall for this guy, simply because he was treating us like people, not like peons, and just like equals. And so that's where I realized early on, I will follow somebody with these type of qualities because I want to, not because I have to. And that's the type of leadership that I've always wanted to instill, when I grew in my career.
Well, that's interesting, because my second question went right along with that, which was, what characteristics specifically make you want to follow somebody? I think you hammered that out. What would you call those things?
I got more.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, what would you call, you describe this person, but what would you call those characteristics?
Yeah.
So, if someone was listening to this, they could say, hey, those are really good things that I could develop to become a better leader.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of your listeners may have heard the term servant leadership, where somebody possesses that humble quality and characteristic. That's absolutely the type of leader that this partner was, and that I see myself doing here at HBK. I don't care what it is. I've, taken out the trash and put together furniture, and, stayed late and rolled up my sleeves and done audit work. And it doesn't matter, what role you have in the firm. It's showing people that, nothing's below you, and, you're part of the team. And I always, said, I love working with those type of leaders, versus working for other leaders. So humble's a great quality. I got a couple other ones, probably. Vulnerable. I like leaders that are vulnerable, ones that can let hey, I don't always get it right. I think vulnerable leaders are ones that are willing to take risks, and they're willing to, suffer the consequences if those risks don't always pan out. So I think vulnerable leaders are great ones that I love to follow. I also, love being with caring and thoughtful leaders. Maybe not, thoughtful as far as, sending birthday cards or anything, but, just our managing partner, Chris Allegretti, has a great saying that I've always, come back to. And it's where people don't care how much they care. People don't care how much until they know how much you care. Yeah. And I really thought that was Chris's quote, but then I did some research on it, and it's actually Teddy Roosevelt that came up with it. But I'll give some kudos to Chris, some kudos to Teddy, and both of them outstanding leaders, by the way.
Yeah, that's great. And I look around, Craig, as you know, we're in this election cycle right now, and people say this a lot of the time. They say, our politicians, or those we vote for, is a reflection of who we are. And I don't know how true that is, but you can definitely see some of that, especially in the corporate world. What do you think, Craig, we're lacking in leadership in the American culture specifically, that we really got to change? And keeping religion and politics out of this, but talking about, specifically in corporate America, as you look at the American landscape, where do you think we're lacking in leadership that we need to improve on?
Well, whether, we won't touch on politics, although there was a debate last night that we probably watched. And, whether you see it in corporate America or across the aisle in DC, a lot of finger pointing is going on. And I think the really good, strong leaders are the ones who are accountable, where they say, the buck stops with them, and they're willing to make the difficult decisions and stand behind them because they believe that those decisions are what's right for, the greater good of the organization. I know we were stuck with some tough decisions during the pandemic. Do we lay people off? Do we furlough? Because it was going to be extremely difficult, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably went through. And we made some difficult decisions, that us as a partner group might have to kind of, tighten our belts a little bit and take less and, being able to keep everybody on payroll and keep operations normal. And so, it's the accountability I think is definitely lacking in today's, business climate. I also think that not enough businesses are forward thinking for their succession planning with their leaders, where you may have a generational business and that, first generation, the owner of the business, he or she may not be transitioning to another generation. They might not be training up that person that he or she, is seen as the heir apparent of that business. I know we're seeing it with a lot of our clients. Frankly, succession planning is difficult in any business out there. And I think it takes a strong leader to realize, when the time is up or when it's coming up, and identify those heir apparents and get them trained up to have a nice, smooth handoff to them. Another one, if I can touch on it, is something, because I am a leadership book junkie, and talking about qualities and characteristics, you may have heard the term EQ, where it's the emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. I think not enough leaders today possess high EQs, where they can think about the other person in the conversation or putting themselves in somebody else's shoes. Can they empathize? Do they know how to, have confrontation and not have it break apart? So those are some qualities that definitely I love to see in leaders, and I think is frankly lacking in today's companies by many leaders.
I think that's so fascinating. I've heard of, obviously I've studied EQ a lot and the importance of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And, you said servant leadership, all those things, Craig, they go together. And it's just interesting that when you start with that philosophy of servant leadership, how you're willing to not be insensitive about your sensitivity. Because all of us as leaders, we got a bit of sensitivity. We could mask it or we could just act tough through it, but none of us want to let our teams down. We want to create great results. So we have to be sensitive about our own sensitivity in that, and that requires great emotional intelligence. If not, we can bully people when we're feeling sensitive, and that's a typical reaction in our American society, especially because it's like this idea, Craig, that we got to have it all together and we got to be perfect. And that's some bad philosophies that have been spread in corporate America, especially. But I love what you're saying, and I hope our audience is listening. This is Craig Steinhoff. He's a partner in charge in our Sarasota office at HBK, and he's sharing his leadership wisdom with us today. And I really hope that all of you are taking notes, not if you're driving, but if you're not driving, you're taking notes, or you're making a mental note to rewind and go back through this lesson. Craig, you're in charge of CAS. Could you explain to the audience what the CAS niche is and why it's such a great benefit to our client base?
Sure. No, I'd be glad to. CAS, which stands for Client Accounting and Advisory Services. So it's CAAS, and that second A, advisory, is really important. And that's where we show our value to our clients. Some people, have typically thought of CAS as bookkeeping, which is a sliver, a tiny sliver of what we do. So we take care, we have the ability to do as much or as little as a business needs or wants. That's kind of how I phrase it, which obviously is a lot. But our CAS team, we can do anything from, keeping up the books, handling accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll. closing the books on a monthly basis in kind of a controller type of role, and then looking forward and sitting down on the same side of the table as the business owner as an outsourced CFO, and really guiding them through issues, obviously a pandemic, where we're looking at, cash flow issues that they may have, personnel issues that they may have, operational issues, how do I grow the business? How do I transition? Because the HBK's CAS division is connected to HBK, and we have, I think, one of the best, tax advisory groups. We can leverage them and come up with great tax planning strategies for our CAS clients. So it's really a differentiator where we're getting so ingrained in our clients' businesses day to day, month to month, where now they're able to make good, sound, wise business decisions on accurate financials. And we're along there, for the ride, if not guiding them down the road. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that, it really is. You think about why people get paid in the marketplace, and it's for adding value. And you can pay for, and we talk about this at HBK, and I think it's important to be transparent about this, is you can really get the compliance work of tax and audit work, especially in bookkeeping, anywhere you want, really. And there's a lot of online tools you can use, for the love of Pete. But what you said about being an advisor, a trusted advisor, you can't just get that from anyone. And I love the idea that CAS really does provide ongoing, continual value. You can't really quantify the value. I mean, we do the best we can, but you can't really quantify the value of having that trusted advisor that you're able to connect with regularly. Craig, from being the leader of CAS, as well as a partner in charge of the office, I know you're very busy, but in the industry itself, in industry, and having been working in CAS, and you're in a multitude of businesses and business types, what are you seeing in the industries right now that people really need to be aware of, especially coming out of this pandemic and the crisis? And some people are saying that this is a V-shaped turnaround, some are saying a K, but what do you want people to know and be aware of as we start to come out of this time?
Well, I definitely saw it going into the pandemic, where a lot of businesses had to quickly, turn and pivot, where one day, it happened to us. One day you're in the office, the next day you have to be remote. And so we had to change our processes. We had to change the way we operated the business. And luckily, a lot of what we do on the CAS team is remote. We're virtual. We're virtual bookkeepers. We're virtual controllers. We're virtual CFOs. And really, it was very limited changes for us. So those business owners and anybody in the industry, embrace change. Just know that it's coming. Be accepting of change. Be part of the solution of change, and it'll make kind of that transition easier. And we've always said in the firm, we know that change is coming. Do you want to be the disruptor, or do you want to be the disrupted? None of us want to be disrupted. So let's be the disruptor. So it's one of those things that, I don't care what industry you're in, change is coming to it. Keep an eye out for it. Be forward thinking. Identify it before it smacks you in the face.
Yeah, I love that. I love, I've heard it said before that precision beats power and agility beats speed. Being able to adjust and being able to be precise, how important that is. And in CAS, do you feel like it's part of your cause, Craig, to make sure you help clients as they adjust and as they try to be precise for their specific business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're kind of holding the roadmap and holding their hand down these tricky corridors. So that's one of the fun things, frankly, as an advisor, where we're sitting down with these clients, we're coming up with key performance indicators to measure their business against itself historically, against its industry, and saying, hey, here's where you measure up, but we don't stop there. Then we talk about, how can you get better? How can we improve some of these metrics, which in the end increases profit, increases, bottom line, which more bonuses for their employees, happier employees, which, just it keeps on rolling and rolling and rolling. And, just to be able to watch that happen for our clients and friends, it's a blast.
That's awesome. And I love that you're able to work with a diverse group and still offer the same value. I think there's nothing better than that. And really helps with, the experience of your team too. So that's awesome. Craig, there's a lot of listeners who they're always asking, what's one thing I can do right now? You're always saying, take absolute immediate action. And so for you, if there's one thing you'd like to pass on to somebody who's asking that question today, and, as much as possible, what's the one specific actionable item you would tell people today they have to start doing to become a better leader? What is it for you?
I'll get back to my leadership books. There's one called Mindset, and it talks about, people are different, and some people have a growth mindset and some people have a fixed mindset. And more often than not, those that succeed have a growth mindset. And frankly, I think that that's imperative to succeed in the business world or at home. And, we're instilling that. My wife and I are instilling that in our daughters, a growth mindset where, you can always get better. You can always improve. You can always learn. You can always grow. And, for your listeners, I think that that's extremely important advice to take with and run. You're not your best self today.
Yeah, I like that. And I've talked about this a few times, but there's a study that was done by a professor from Florida University. It was a cross-academic study, and they took 25 years of success research, and they tried to find what were the common characteristics of successful people. And you nailed it, which was number one. These are like revolutionary thoughts. Number one is they are continual and voracious learners. And number two, they practice what they learn. So if you didn't hear Craig Steinhoff just tell you the secrets of success in life, then you will be remiss. So make sure that you take what Craig is saying. And I think specifically, reading books is very, very important. And not just reading books, but taking concepts and practicing them. I know that's what you do, Craig. I think the easiest way to have success, you follow what successful people do, and you will have success. Craig, I know there's going to be some people who will be interested in following up with you and connecting with you. How can people do that? LinkedIn's always a great place. I always recommend that. But what's some ways people can get a hold of you and connect with you further?
I think absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn, Craig Steinhoff. And my email is csteinhoff@hbkcpa.com.
That's awesome. He's giving you the direct line, ladies and gentlemen. So please, if you do email him, just put podcast in the subject line so Craig knows the context. I know he gets just a couple emails every day. So please put podcast in the subject line. Craig, we're so grateful that you joined us today. And I know we will be better off for it, all of us. I know I've got some notes I need to go back and look at, and all great reminders and all things that we can take in actionable items today. So really appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you take absolute immediate action on the ideas that compel you, and make sure you listen to this podcast not once, not twice, but a multitude of times to make sure that the concepts and ideas sink into your heart and mind, and become a part of your subconscious streaming patterns. And I can't wait to talk to you next time on the HBK High Performance Podcast.